You want to know about success, like really unlock it in your career, relationships, your life, all that. Well, get this. We're diving into a book that's practically ancient history, and it's still topping bestseller lists today.
Dale Carnegie, right?
You got it. How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Published way back in 1937. Imagine that.
I know, right? Wild. But here's the thing. It's sold over 30 million copies, so there's got to be something timeless about these principles, right?
Absolutely. Timeless quality, for sure.
Okay, but before you think this is just your grandparents' self-help stuff, hold up. Even Carnegie himself, he practically admitted he wished he'd known this stuff 20 years earlier, called it a priceless boon.
It makes you think, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
If the guy who wrote the book on winning people over felt like he needed it, what could we learn?
Exactly. And what's so fascinating is this book, it didn't come from some big epiphany Carnegie had, you know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it actually came from a massive, and I mean massive study.
Get out.
Think about it. Back in the 1930s,
Wait.
at the University of Chicago and the YMCA, they wanted to figure out what adults were really craving when it came to education.
Wait, really? They did a whole study on that.
Oh, yeah, they did. And 2 years and a ton of money later,
Yeah.
they uncovered something pretty amazing.
All right, hit me with it. What was the magic answer? More important than making money or chasing hobbies or...
Well, health was number one.
Okay, makes sense.
Right. But right after that,
Yeah.
the desire to understand and connect with other people,
Interesting.
how to get along, build relationships, navigate the social world, basically the same stuff that probably brought you to this deep dive today.
So it's not just some new agey thing then. This whole peeper skills thing's been a big deal for a long time.
Precisely. And you, our listener, you're part of that long lineage of people trying to master these essential skills.
That's really interesting. Okay, so we've established this book is crazy relevant even after all these years. But how does it actually help us? Like, what's the secret sauce?
Well, Carnegie lays out 6 fundamental principles to make people like you.
6.
6, yeah. And these aren't like complex strategies or anything. They're simple but powerful actions. Things we can all do.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's number 1 on this list?
Let's start with one I'm sure you've heard before. Remembering names.
Ugh, see? That's my Achilles heel right there. I am terrible with names. It's like they go in one ear and right out the other.
And that's exactly why Carnegie emphasizes it. Most people totally overlook the power of a name.
Okay, but why is it so powerful? Isn't it just a word?
It's more than just a word. Think about it. It's a symbol of our individuality, our identity. When someone remembers our name, it shows they see us, you know, like they value us. They're paying attention.
Yeah, no, I get that. It does feel good when someone remembers my name, especially if I haven't seen them in a while.
Exactly. And Carnegie actually gives this great example of this with Jim Farley.
Jim Farley?
Yeah, he was the political strategist behind Roosevelt's super successful campaign.
What, did he like hand out name tags at rallies or something?
This guy. He was rumored to remember the names of over 50,000 people.
What?
He understood that remembering and using someone's name, it was a simple but incredibly effective way to build rapport and make a lasting impression.
Huh, okay, 50,000. That's practically a superpower. All right, I need to step up my game. But realistically, who can remember that many names?
Right, it's not about memorizing the entire phone book or anything. It's the effort that counts. And actually, Carnegie tells this great story about a salesman who had a client with a really challenging name, Nicodemus Papadoulos.
Oh, I can see why people probably just called him Nick.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But this salesman, Sid Levy, he decided to make the effort. So the next time he saw his client,
Yeah.
he greets him with a big old hearty, "Good afternoon, Mr. Nicodemus Papadoulos."
Okay, I'm cringing for this guy, imagining him butchering that name.
You think, right?
Right.
But the client, he was deeply moved. He said that in all his years in the U.S., no one had ever actually bothered to call him by his real name. It brought tears to his eyes.
Wow, okay, that's powerful. A simple act of remembering a name, and it created a real human connection.
And think about how relevant that is today, especially in the professional world. Imagine you're at a conference, right? You meet someone new, and the next time you see them, you remember their name.
Boom! You've instantly set yourself apart from everyone else.
You're precisely.
It's like you've shown them they're not just another business card. All right, I'm starting to get this whole remembering names thing. What's next on Carnegie's list of ways to win people over?
So next up, we've got a principle that might seem even more obvious, but honestly, it's something we often struggle with, being genuinely interested in others.
Okay, that sounds nice and all, but what if the person's going on and on about something I find mind-numbingly boring? I'm not going to magically become a botany expert overnight, am I?
And that's where genuine curiosity comes in. So Carnegie actually tells this story, right,
Mm-hmm.
about finding himself seated next to a botanist at a dinner party.
Oh no, I feel that pain already.
And he fully admits to knowing nothing about plants, but he was determined to actually make the best of the conversation.
Okay, so what'd he do? Just fake it till he made it.
Not at all.
Hmm.
He just started asking questions, listening attentively. And here's the thing. He found himself actually genuinely engaged by the botanist's passion and knowledge. They talked for hours.
No way. So by being present and curious, he stumbled onto something fascinating. I feel like we so often underestimate the power of just listening.
Absolutely. People crave being heard and understood.
Yep.
That's it. And when you can set aside your own agenda and truly focus on the other person, you create a connection that goes way beyond just, superficial conversation.
This is so true. I've been in those situations where someone just nails it. They ask those insightful questions. They're actually paying attention to my answers. And suddenly I'm like spilling my life story. It's kind of scary, honestly.
Exactly. And think about how rare that is today, right?
For sure.
We're bombarded with distractions. Everyone's on their phones.
Constantly.
But mastering that art of active listening, that can seriously set you apart.
Okay, I'm convinced. Remembering names, showing genuine interest, these are like secret weapons in building real connections. But what about the influencing part? That just seems way more complicated.
And Carnegie tackles that head on in the next section. Winning people to your way of thinking, even when you're right.
Even when you're right. Okay, that's an interesting twist. I always figure if I'm right, people should just agree with me.
If only it were that simple. But Carnegie reminds us, logic alone rarely wins hearts and minds. We have to engage people's emotions, make them feel like they're part of the process.
So it's not about just like bulldozing them with facts and figures.
Not at all. One technique he suggests, the yes technique.
Okay, that sounds a little manipulative, I'm not going to lie. Like some kind of Jedi mind trick.
No. It's not about trickery. It's about establishing common ground early on. So you find points of agreement, even if they're small, to kind of create that sense of collaboration.
Okay, I need an example. How does this whole yes thing actually work in real life?
So Carnegie tells a story about this bank teller, right? James Everson. He had totally mastered this technique. So this customer comes in wanting a specific type of loan, which the bank didn't actually offer.
Uh-oh.
But instead of just saying, nope, sorry, can't do it, Everson starts with, you're absolutely right. That type of loan would be ideal for your situation.
Wait, so he agreed, even though he knew the bank couldn't help.
Exactly. But here's the thing. By acknowledging the customer's need and validating their desire, he created an opening. He could then smoothly transition into discussing loan products they did offer.
Oh, that's clever. He sidestepped a potential argument by finding that common ground first.
Exactly. It's not about contradicting, it's about bridging that gap. And Carnegie also emphasizes this other thing, the importance of dramatizing your ideas.
Traumatizing. Am I like putting on a one-man show in the middle of a meeting?
Not quite, but I do have a story for you.
Hit me.
So Carnegie tells this story of a salesman who's trying to convince a client that his cold cream is superior to the competition, right?
Okay, I'm always up for a good sales story. So what'd this guy do?
He walks into the client's office and dumps 32 jars of cold cream right on his desk.
Whoa. Okay, that's a power move.
Each one a different brand,
Whoa.
all competitors to his product.
Okay, so he's making a statement.
Right. It was unforgettable. And from there, he launches into his pitch.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. This wasn't just about being flashy or gimmicky.
Right.
It was about creating an experience.
You got it. Carnegie knew people are persuaded not just by logic, but by what they see, feel, and experience.
So instead of just talking at the client, he pulled him into this demonstration. I can see how that'd be way more effective.
Precisely. It's about making your ideas come alive, engaging more than just their ears.
Okay, this is making a lot of sense. It's about understanding people's psychology, appealing to their emotions, making them feel like they're part of the journey.
Exactly. It's persuasion, not manipulation. It's about creating that win-win situation where everyone feels heard and understood.
This is some seriously good stuff. And I bet it's just as relevant today in negotiations, presentations, heck, even trying to convince my kid to eat their vegetables.
Absolutely. Carnegie's insights are timeless because they tap into something so core to human nature.
Totally.
Our desire for connection, respect, understanding.
Okay, so we've covered making people like you. We've talked about winning people to your way of thinking. But what about those moments when things just go sideways, like when we mess up or someone's upset with us?
Right.
Carnegie actually has a whole section for that. be right, but don't be self-righteous. It's like he knew we'd need this part.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's often when we're most convinced we're right that things go totally off the rails.
Our instinct is to like dig in our heels, right?
Yeah.
Defend ourselves.
Yeah.
But Carnegie's suggesting something totally radical. Admit our mistakes first.
Exactly.
Hold on, seriously. Like, even if the other person is being completely unreasonable.
Even then, think about it. When we go on the defense, it immediately puts the other person on the defensive too, right?
Yeah, for sure. Walls go up.
Exactly. But by acknowledging our own shortcomings, even if they're small, we kind of disarm the situation.
Okay, I can see that. It's like it takes the wind out of their sails a bit if you've already said, hey, I get it, I messed up here too. But do you have like a real life example of this? Because it sounds good in theory, but...
Carnegie tells this funny story about a college instructor, right? He comes out to his car and his driveway's blocked.
Oh no, the worst.
And it's one of his students who parked there. He's fuming, ready to go full-on angry professor.
I've been there.
But then he stops himself. Instead of yelling, he just calmly explains that he needs to get his car out and asks if the student can move theirs. Turns out the student had no idea they were in the wrong, apologized profusely, moved the car.
Wow, see, that's amazing. Just by changing his approach, it went from 0 to 60 right back down to 0. It's like sometimes being nice is the most unexpected and effective thing you can do.
Absolutely. And it works in those high-stakes situations too. Carnegie talks about this construction project that was totally delayed because a subcontractor was late delivering some bronze work.
Oh, that's never good.
Right. So the main contractor, this guy, Mr. Gaw, he's understandably upset. Time is money, right?
You bet. So did he storm over there ready to give the subcontractor a piece of his mind?
Not at all. He actually decides to go visit the subcontractor shop, wants to learn more about his business. Yeah. And during the visit, Gaw discovers this guy is incredibly proud of his work. He even invented some of his own machinery.
So he finds a point of genuine connection with the guy who's messing up his project timeline.
Exactly. Gaw praises the subcontractor's craftsmanship, his ingenuity. And guess what? Without Gaw even mentioning the delay, the subcontractor brings it up himself and promises to expedite things.
No way! That is wild. So by focusing on the positive, he solved the problem without even having to directly confront the guy.
It's the power of appealing to people's better nature. It's assuming the best, even when they've made a mistake.
This makes me think about all the stuff you hear now about the modern workplace, you know? There's so much talk about psychological safety, like creating an environment where people can admit mistakes without being, you know, crucified.
And that's exactly what Carnegie's getting at.
Yeah.
By admitting our faults, we create a space for other people to do the same.
It's like setting the tone, right? If the leader can admit they're not perfect, it makes it okay for everyone else to be human too.
Precisely. And when people feel safe admitting mistakes, you can actually address the issues productively instead of just getting bogged down in blame.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about admitting faults, but Carnegie also talks about the flip side of that, right? The importance of genuine praise.
Absolutely. Can't forget about praise.
Right. I mean, we all love getting it.
Who doesn't?
But I know I'm guilty of not giving it enough. What are some of Carnegie's most memorable anecdotes about the power of praise?
Oh, there are so many good ones. One that always stands out is the story of Marie the dishwasher.
Marie the dishwasher.
Yeah, she worked at this hotel. And frankly, her coworkers thought she was a bit, you know, rough around the edges.
Okay.
But one day, a hotel guest tells her, Marie, you do not know what treasures are within you.
Wow, that's actually really beautiful.
Right. Especially for someone who probably didn't hear that very often.
Exactly.
And it had this profound impact on her. From that day forward, Marie's whole demeanor changed. She started taking better care of herself, her appearance, her attitude. Just those few words of encouragement sparked a real transformation.
It really is amazing how a little praise can be such a powerful motivator.
It really is. And Carnegie tells this other great story about Charles Schwab.
The steel tycoon.
That's the one. So Schwab notices that one of his factory teams is kind of lagging behind in production.
Uh-oh.
But instead of yelling or threatening anyone, he does something really unexpected. He walks over to where they're tracking production and just chalks his big 6-foot on the floor.
A 6-foot? What is that? Their grade.
It represented the units they'd produced that day.
That's it. Just the number.
Believe it or not, it worked wonders. The night shift saw that 6, and they were determined to beat it. They produced 7 units. Then the day shift saw the 7 and felt challenged to do even better.
Wow. So it turned into this friendly competition all because he acknowledged their work, basically.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of Carnegie's principles. They're not complicated. They're about tapping into our shared humanity.
Remembering names, showing genuine interest, admitting our faults, giving sincere praise. It's like you said, these things create real connections and they foster positive change.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been awesome. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on, how to navigate relationships in all areas of life.
Me too. And as we wrap up, here's a final thought for you, our listener. Carnegie said that praise is the sincere appreciation of the other person's latent possibilities,
Ooh, that's good.
not just for what they've done, but for what they could do. How might viewing your interactions through that lens change things? How might you inspire those around you to reach their full potential?
Ooh, that's something to think about. Great stuff, as always. And to you listening out there, keep those deep dive requests coming, and we'll see you in the next episode.